Hello, and welcome to this introductory overview of the Autism-Friendly program at CARD USF. This information is presented by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities at the University of South Florida. CARD is a community-based program funded by the Florida Department of Education. Our main mission is to optimize the potential of people on the spectrum by providing resources, information, trainings, and consultation. Further, we offer guidance and support to individuals with autism and their family members, as well as educators, professionals, and community members. If you are viewing this training, your business or organization is involved with CARD's Autism Friendly initiative. Autism Friendly started at CARD several years ago as a result of feedback from our constituents. We will learn today that there are characteristics and behaviors of autism that can make it difficult for someone on the spectrum to navigate the environment. Sometimes, when individuals with autism go out in public, their communication differences, behaviors, and unique ways of interacting with the world can draw unfavorable attention. Explicit or implicit judgment or isolation can discourage them from participating in community events. We started Autism Friendly as a way for businesses to be more welcoming and inclusive of these individuals, because everyone deserves meaningful opportunities to access and contribute to community life. Today, we will learn about autism so that in your role at your business or organization, you can be more understanding of the needs of patrons, guests, or visitors who might be on the spectrum. The autism-friendly process involves staff training tailored to each business, technical assistance in the form of recommended accommodations and modifications, review of materials, creating visual supports, etc., providing one Distract Pack sensory kit per business, exploring internship and employment opportunities for autistic adults, support during sensory-friendly events, and being available throughout the year to answer your questions and troubleshoot concerns. Please note this is a supplemental training meant to complement your business's in-person autism-friendly trainings. It includes a basic overview of autism and evidence-based strategies that can be useful in a variety of settings and situations. However, your leadership should continue to schedule trainings on an annual basis, as the on-site trainings are more detailed and comprehensive. Our objectives today are to provide an overview of the autism diagnosis, including common characteristics, to establish a baseline of familiarity with the diagnosis. Next, we will review effective practices for creating an autism-friendly environment. My goal is to make these strategies actionable, practical, and low or no cost. Here are some fast facts about autism. The CDC tracks the prevalence of autism through a multi-state network of centers. In the latest release of data from 2021, the CDC estimates that 1 in 44 children are diagnosed with ASD, or autism spectrum disorder. This is approximately 2.3% of children in the United States. This number has continued to rise over the years and will likely change again. Autism is a complex brain disorder that emerges in early childhood. The brain development of someone with autism indicates underdeveloped connectivity issues in two major areas: social communication and restricted and repetitive interests or behaviors. We will go into more detail about these domains on the following slides. Autism is a lifelong neurological disability, not to be confused with a disease or mental health disorder. However, individuals with autism often have co-occurring diagnoses such as anxiety or ADHD. Autism is diagnosed by a medical professional, such as a neurologist or a psychologist, who will use a diagnostic tool in a comprehensive observation. They will also take a social history from the family. Once a diagnosis is made, the family will work with their provider on the best course of action, which could include education, medication, various therapies, ESE services in school, and so on. Autism occurs in all ethnic, racial, and socioeconomic groups. However, there is some disparity in diagnostic rates across races. Historically, a higher percentage of white children were identified with ASD compared to Black children and Hispanic children. Recent research shows promising trends that these gaps are closing due to an emphasis and efforts towards better outreach in underserved communities. Autism is also about 4 times more likely to occur in boys than in girls. Autism is not a one-size-fits-all condition, hence the word spectrum in autism spectrum disorder. Characteristics can range from mild to severe, and there is a wide range of abilities. Further, research has demonstrated a high rate of uneven cognitive development in children with ASD. Although there are verbal and nonverbal IQ tests that can measure a person's cognitive abilities, the language and communication differences, as well as potential difficulty of demonstrating skills in a stressful or unfamiliar testing situation, may affect the results of a test. To be sure, there are many individuals on the spectrum who are very highly intelligent. Our diagnostic manual, the DSM-5, has broken the wide spectrum into 3 categories as a way to help distinguish how much a person's autism impacts their functioning. You may hear individuals on the spectrum being referred to as level 1, level 2, or level 3. Using the DSM-5 as a guide, let's look at the 2 domains mentioned previously in more detail. The first is social communication differences or deficits. In regard to vocal speech, or more colloquially what we call talking, there are some individuals on the spectrum who do not speak at all. In this case, they may use alternative or augmentative communication systems, such as sign language or a speech app on a tablet. There are also individuals who can physically speak, but may have a limited word repertoire or non-functional speech. For instance, those who echo or script lines off of a TV show or video clip. Finally, there are individuals who have expansive vocabulary and can carry a conversation, but you may notice differences in speech patterns, inflection, or pitch. You may also observe differences in the back and forth volley of a conversation. Often, the exchange will be one-sided, and the individual with autism may struggle to pick up on facial expressions, body language, or other social cues. They may have difficulty expressing or regulating their emotions and understanding the actions or intentions of others. All of this hinders their ability to connect with others, to form meaningful friendships, and to be successful in school or at work. Certainly, we can all relate to feeling awkward or making a social error from time to time. However, the difference in an individual with autism is qualitative and pervasive, setting them apart from their same-age peers. The second domain that the DSM-5 designates as a defining criterion of autism is restricted interests and repetitive behaviors. Here, we will review some characteristics associated with this domain. People with autism spectrum disorder may have motor movements that they cannot always control, such as hand flapping, rocking, or toe walking. They may also line up toys or fixate on a component of a toy rather than using it to engage in appropriate or imaginative play. People on the spectrum tend to have rigid adherence to routines. They prefer a predictable schedule and are resistant to unexpected changes or surprises. Again, we can all relate to being inconvenienced if an appointment gets canceled or our schedule gets thrown off when we are stuck in traffic. But for an individual with ASD, this can cause a disproportionate stress reaction. They may also have a very strong area of passion or interest and will focus their time and attention on that one area until they acquire a high level of expertise. For example, an individual might commit to memorizing the dates and significant events of every battle in a particular war. This can be a great asset for employment purposes if a job aligns with the topic of interest. Using our example, maybe the person described could work at a history museum. On the other hand, it can also interfere with completing tasks, building relationships, or learning other skills if all the person's time and energy is spent on the interest area alone. Lastly, we have seen that many people with ASD struggle with sensory sensitivities. This can include over or underreacting to sensory stimuli such as lights, sounds, touch, and smells. It can also include unexpected reactions to heat, cold, or pain, and difficulty recognizing the internal sensations of hunger or thirst, having to use the restroom, or being tired. As a result, many individuals on the spectrum have restricted diets, irregular sleep patterns, or difficulty toilet training. Pulling all of this information together, at your place of business, you may notice individuals on the spectrum have differences or difficulties with focus and engagement, transitioning from one activity or area to another, waiting, hearing no, or being denied access, interacting appropriately with staff and other guests, adhering to unspoken social rules or expectations, and regulating their sensory systems. This will inform the next portion of our training, in which we will discuss strategies for creating a safe and comfortable environment and provide tips for communicating with someone who might be on the spectrum. When considering sensory-related strategies, first it is important to note that we all have a unique sensory profile, or things that we like and things that we don't in our sensory world. I'm sure we all have varying temperatures at which we're the most comfortable, different foods that we enjoy, and different levels of tolerance for noise, crowds, or being hugged. In autistic individuals, they have the same preferences, but they present as much more extreme. They might be triggered by things that you and I barely register. Another possibility is they may not have the problem-solving and decision-making skills to cope. For example, if I were in a setting that caused me sensory distress, let's say a concert that was too loud, I would examine my options. I could leave, I could stay but try to move further from the speakers, or I could try wearing earplugs. For our folks on the spectrum, they may not have the instincts or skill sets to remove themselves. In this case, they may respond with a challenging behavior instead. To address any sensory concerns, first we suggest that an autism-friendly venue take a sensory inventory. Some venues, such as a zoo or aquarium, may be high sensory due to the smell and noise from the animals and the habitats, the crowds, and the bright sunlight and heat in areas that are outdoors. By comparison, other venues, like an art museum, are relatively low sensory. Even when it is crowded, they tend to be quiet and more consistent in temperature and other stimuli across the environment. As you move through your space, identify areas where there might be problematic sensory features. As a reminder, CARD can assist with this process. Rest assured, it is likely impossible to remove every sensory trigger, particularly because what is bothersome to one individual may go unnoticed by another. But knowing where there are common triggers can help with warning families in advance, as well as giving them alternatives. Perhaps they will skip the fire station exhibit because of the siren, or maybe they'll bring a few paper towels with them from home to avoid having to use the automatic hand dryers in the restroom. Another thing to consider is whether certain features can be modulated or turned off by request. For example, is it possible to turn the music down if a family asks? If space allows, we also suggest that venues designate a quiet area or sensory relief zone. This is a place out of the way where a family can go if someone is getting agitated and needs to take a break. It may be empty, or you could provide a low sensory activity like a coloring book and crayons that may aid someone who is trying to de-escalate. If an individual is often triggered, they may bring sensory regulating tools with them from home. These could be things like noise-reducing headphones or hand fidgets for tactile feedback. You can also supplement with a sensory kit of your own making and have it available for families to borrow. CARD's kit is called the Distract Pack. We distribute these to our business partners at no charge so that they can be offered to a visitor who might need to take a sensory break. They are equipped with headphones, various hand fidgets, and sunglasses. It also contains a brochure that describes when to introduce the kit to a family that might benefit from utilizing it. In addition, the brochure provides a list of Distract Pack items in case the venue chooses to make additional kits or needs to replace items that have been lost or broken. Ask your leadership team where your card Distract Pack is located. Respect is key to fostering a welcoming and safe environment. Therefore, we encourage the use of respectful language at all times, not only in the presence of someone on the spectrum, but behind the scenes as well. As we have already reviewed, there are many ways to communicate. Just because a person doesn't speak or make eye contact does not mean they do not understand. Avoid making assumptions about a person's intelligence or abilities solely on these characteristics, and welcome them the same as you would any other guest. In brief interactions, you may not even realize someone is on the spectrum unless they tell you or someone discloses on their behalf. Autism is sometimes referred to as a hidden disability because there are not visibly obvious signs. However, in an extended interaction, you may be more likely to pick up on some of the social communication differences or repetitive behaviors we reviewed in Section 1. If while speaking to someone you suspect may be on the spectrum, you can make minor adjustments accordingly to help bridge communication if there is a gap. You can try slowing your pace and speaking concisely. There may be a processing delay which requires some extra patience. Sometimes it can also help to use questions in the yes, no, or choice format as opposed to open-ended. Finally, you may want to supplement your vocal information with visual supports. We will expand on visual supports in the next slides. So what are visual supports? Visual supports communicate information to an individual who may or may not have language differences. In other words, we all use visuals to help make sense of our surroundings. Visuals can be photographs, drawings, objects, text, symbols, or icons. Think about the visuals you use every day. If you're driving to a new address, someplace you've never been before, your visual supports will likely be things like maps, street signs, and your GPS. If you're shopping at the grocery store, you might rely on aisle signs, similar products being lumped together in sections, and referring to your grocery list. In fact, everyone listening to this training has a visual support right now. It's the PowerPoint. So not only are you hearing my voice, but you have notes to complement the information I am providing, which appeals to visual or multimodal learners. We use visual supports because visuals facilitate structure and organization, reduce anxiety by clarifying expectations, encourage skill development, and, as we have already noted, can help everyone. They are useful for all ages and skill levels. They are especially helpful for those on the spectrum who tend to be visual learners. They can also assist those with other diagnoses, such as those who are deaf or hard of hearing, and they assist those for whom English is not their first language. So what counts as a visual support? Here are some visual examples. Signage, brochures and pamphlets, and maps likely already exist in your space. If you are creating new products as a result of your autism-friendly efforts, the simpler the better. They could be color-coded or include a sensory key. Interactive worksheets or activities are also visual supports that help an individual stay focused, on task, and engaged with the content. Examples include I Spy or Find It type prompts, as well as hands-on exhibits. A task analysis breaks down a complex skill into smaller parts. Task analyses enhance learning and independence for individuals who may not intuitively understand a multi-step task or cannot follow multi-step auditory directions. Schedules, checklists, and timers can be useful visuals to make a visit to your venue predictable. Remember, folks with autism like routine, so having a written or picture-based schedule helps them answer questions like, what's next, and for how long? These visuals can take many forms, such as recommending a route through your venue or the schedule for a day of camp. Social narratives are typically written in the first person and use simple language. It's a start-to-finish story. They describe a social situation, include pictures, and explain expectations and rules. Ideally, the social narrative is reviewed before the situation or event occurs as a way to prepare for a new experience. In the case of autism-friendly businesses, it should be read with the parent or caregiver prior to a visit. Visuals will vary from place to place, and CARD can assist in the creation of visual supports catered to your space and programming. Again, ask your leadership if you have been involved in any CARD-created visual support materials that maybe already exist on your website for download or at your guest services desk. As we wrap up our presentation, you may find yourself wanting some additional resources. Here is the link to our autism-friendly website. There is a directory tab where you can see a list of all of our active businesses and the social narratives that we have written with them. Hopefully, you see your business listed there. There is also a tab where you can download various PDFs. One PDF explains what it means to be designated as an autism-friendly business. You may notice that Autism Friendly is not a formal certification program or in any way legally binding. Moreover, it is not a guarantee of modifications or accommodations beyond what is, quote, safe and reasonable, unquote, for each individual business. In other words, you get to decide what autism friendly means for you. We just ask that you do your best to include people with developmental disabilities, using CARD as a resource when appropriate. There is another PDF that provides guidance for sensory-friendly events, should your venue decide to plan a sensory-friendly opportunity specific to the autistic community. This is a link to our autism-friendly Facebook page. Here, we post event flyers for our autism-friendly businesses. Feel free to like or follow us to stay abreast with what is happening, and tag us if there is something you would like us to share. Finally, here is all the contact information for CARD USF and a map of our catchment area. You can refer families in need of support to register with us, reach out with general questions, refer another business who may be interested in Autism Friendly, or view many of the wonderful pre-recorded trainings in our online library. We appreciate you taking the time to view this training. I mentioned at the beginning, Autism Friendly was created with the belief that all people deserve the chance to live happy, active, and productive lives. It takes the commitment of individuals as well as company-wide attitudes of inclusion to make this vision a reality. Individuals with ASD may have different needs, but when they are included, we all benefit. Thank you.